Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. It is so good to be back, and it is so good to not be laying in the bed singing that song. I'm so thankful that we have the live stream, and I love the live stream, but there is nothing like being here with you guys, and I'm so thankful to be back. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey, but before I do, I wanted to introduce this guy over here, John Harris. I don't know whether any of you know this, but all of the people who play instruments on our stage, and our entire band is a volunteer-based band, and that allows us, I know a lot of churches, I don't want to put a bug in there, but a lot of churches pay their band people, but that allows us to do so many good things with the money that we don't use in there. But and except for, I think, for Carrie Gant, John may be our longest running band person up here, and almost. And after he saw Hope Springs and Lee and Melissa and Stephanie and all the team come back from Africa, he got something in his heart that said, I want to do something more than what I'm doing now. And he made the decision, I think, got with Lee and said, I want to go. And I wanted you to hear just a little bit from John about why he decided to go and what meant something that said, I want to make a trip like that.
Smack me in the back of the head if I go too long on this, because I can drone on forever, it seems like. But yeah, I've kind of, the past few years, I've been trying to really minimize some things, and especially with this heart attack series, some of that stuff was resonating very well with me. And as a small business owner, I own and operate a gym here in Gallatin, CrossFit Gallatin. I joined some business mentorship groups over the past year, trying to get better at what I'm doing instead of just the fitness side, the business side. And a lot of people were encouraging me to, grow your space, buy more equipment, better bathrooms, showers, and just more that's going to make you more successful. And the whole time I wasn't really feeling that was what was put on my heart at the time. So I was stressing out quite a bit, probably too much, and I was in the process of maybe purchasing a commercial property and going into a little bit more debt than I wanted to. And I saw this video that Melissa and her team put up, and that just kind of grounded me instantly. And I let it simmer for a couple of weeks, got with Lee, and at the base level, I want to be a weapon in God's arsenal. And everything after that is it's very worldly, whether I'm trying to pursue a bigger house, bigger car, whatever. If you want to do any of that, that's fine. But I feel like that's not what was put on my heart over the past couple of years. So I just want to find a place where I can spend more of my time valuable, and I want to be of service in whatever way I can. And this is a perfect opportunity. I'm super, super excited, slightly nervous, but I'm super happy that I was given the opportunity, so it'll be fun.
Well, when I found out, I just happened to be walking through, Lee said, hey, we got something we need to pray for. John wants to go to Nigeria with us, and we're awful close to get visas and shots and all that stuff that has to happen. And Hope Springs is going back to Nigeria. I don't know whether many of you know, they partnered with a company, and the name escapes me, World Bank. World Bank comes in, and countries put money into a big pot. And then out of that pot, if there's an impoverished country in the world, if there is a company there who will help a project, whether it's clean water, whether it's raising food or something to help that community, World Bank will pay 90% of the cost of that project if you can raise the 10% as a charity to get that done. So if a well generally costs $10,000, if you can partner with World Bank and World Bank vets you and checks you out, if you can raise $1,000, they'll pay the other $9,000. If a project costs $100,000, you raise the 10, they pay the 90. So your money can go a long way. And World Bank and Hope Springs have partnered in Nigeria for quite a while. But as you saw the great need on the video that came back, there is a huge need in Chad for just so many different things. And while World Bank has dabbled in Chad, they've not really been a huge part of what's going on there. So Lee is going to meet with them to show them some of the stuff that they've gone through, the videos that were made, and the work that could be done, and encouraging them to put Chad on their list. And John said, I want to be a part of that. And when I heard that, I thought, I want our church family to be a part of that as well. And I don't know if you know John's wife, Lindsay. She works in the coffee shop every single week. And because you guys drink coffee, we were able to go and fully pay for John's ticket to get there through funds from our coffee shop. So to all of you coffee drinkers, and if you're not a coffee drinker and you think, I still want to be a part of that, you can. I think they even have a slide maybe that has it. You can text like the word missions to something, to that number right there. That will go directly to this trip to Nigeria. If you want to be a part of helping John, helping the church, helping Lee get there, you can do that. And or you could go right up there and put a little money in that. I don't know what it costs once they get there, but I know shots are expensive and all of those other things. And we want to say to you, thank you, because we know something. We know not only does you going change their lives, but you going changes your life. And when you come back from something like that, I don't think you're ever the same again in a good way, because you see the world in a much bigger perspective. So for all the weeks that you give up, 2 Sundays, your Wednesdays to be up here. And Zeke plays in our student band. I mean, you got your whole family involved here, and helps us on camera and in the room back there. I just want to say thank you, not only for what you mean here, but that you've caught the vision of what we're about, not just here, but around the world as well. So thank you, brother, for what you do.
Thank you very much.
Well, most of you know that I have been out for about 6 weeks on what I've called my cancer leave, recovering from surgery. And while it goes against my personality, because I love walking in and talking and hugging and all of those things and being in the green room, I still have a couple of weeks that they've asked me not to be around a lot of people and not hug a bunch of people. And so I'm still hugging my wife and my kids, but past that, that's about it. I took a flu shot, I think it was a week ago Monday, and they've asked me to give that a couple of weeks to kick in. And right now, I have learned to sneeze and it not hurt, but if I cough, it still hurts. So I'm trying not to cough a lot. And if I feel like I have to cough, I sound like a weak hyena trying just these ugly noises that I make. So it's not pretty. Many of you have asked about my journey, and so I hope that it's okay with you that maybe I take today and just share that with you. My journey started actually with a kidney stone. I never thought I would be thankful for a kidney stone. My family has a history of kidney stones, and I had, I think, 2 throughout my life. But I started running, as many of you know, for the Cumberland Crisis Pregnancy Center. That's what got me started, and then Brad Schreiner encouraged a group of us to kind of tried longer, so I thought I'll keep going. I ended up running several marathons, but one of the things I don't do is drink enough. If you put water in front of me, I have a hard time drinking it. Now, if you put sweet tea in front of me, I can drink like nobody's business. I can have 3 or 4 of those. But what happened was a couple of years ago, between January and March, I had 17 kidney stones in that period. If you've ever had one, that is a painful kind of thing to go through. And from that, my doctor, my urologist said, they blasted them out and they said, we're going to try to keep you kidney stone free. So I go once a year and they do a test and they do an x-ray to make sure I'm not growing anymore and take a little supplement that's supposed to help kind of stop those things. But in one of those tests this past year, one of those came back a little bit high, and they said, your PSA level is high. And I didn't even know what a PSA level was. And so after learning what that was, they said, we want you to come back in a month, and we're going to take another one of these tests. And then they give you a list of things not to do. And so they're going over it with you, because they said there are some things that you can do that will artificially inflate the test. And some of those are different foods you can eat. And mind you, at that point, I was training for the Big Sur marathon in California. And he said, don't do any strenuous exercise. Well, when I think of CrossFit, I think of John. I see Paul over here. I think of those people who are like CrossFit people who are out there. So I just looked at him and I said, well, does like running 20 miles a day, does that count as like serious exercise, and he was like, don't run 20 miles a day before you come in here and do this. So he said, you can walk to the refrigerator. That's what I'm going to tell you can do, walk to the refrigerator. So I didn't do anything that week, went in, and the test was higher. And he goes, I think we need to do a biopsy. And I thought, I'm not going to do a biopsy. I feel perfectly fine, which I think there is a message in there somewhere that you can have something on the inside of you that's bothering you. And maybe you don't even realize it at the time, but you just kind of ignore it, and it grows and it festers. And if you don't do something about it, one day it's going to get you. And it kind of reminded me of the series that you guys just did. Those little things on the inside, anger and greed and jealousy, they grow, and you don't actually see the effects at first. Well, this kind of felt the very same way. And Linda's sister is a nurse anesthetist, and she convinced me, yeah, you need to do what the doctor says. You need to go have a biopsy done. So we made the appointment to go have the biopsy. We got down there. They came out and they said, after the biopsy was done, they told Linda, well, everything kind of looked normal for us. We saw the report that they did. It actually said your prostate is unremarkable. And I thought, well, that's kind of a letdown. Who wants to have a body part that's unremarkable? And I thought, well, in the medical world, that's a good thing to have something that's kind of unremarkable like that. So I was glad, I guess, that I had an unremarkable prostate, and we set the appointment to go back and talk about the biopsy in a couple of weeks. And that morning, I made it for first thing, 8 o'clock in the morning, because I thought, I'm going to go, we're going to talk about this test, and then I'm going to go to work. And Linda was down to keep Eli that day, and she got up that morning like she was going with me. And I said, well, you're supposed to be keeping Eli today. And she said, I've already called them. She goes, I'll go after the thing, but I'm going with you. And I said, there is no need to go with me. There is nothing wrong. I know if there was something wrong, I know how it happens. I've seen it on TV. If something's wrong, they call you into the office. He doesn't wear his lab coat. He has a shirt on. He has a tie. He sits behind his desk like this, and you're sitting in a chair in front of him, and that's not happening. So nothing is wrong. And so anyway, I lost that battle, and she went with me. She drove her car because she was going to go and watch Eli afterwards, and I drove my car because I was going to go to work. So we get in, we see the nurse. She takes our vitals and all of that, and we're waiting for the doctor to come in. And when he came in, one of the first things he says, he goes, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. Well, I don't know how many times I've said that to people. I've got good news and I've got bad news, but I've never said that to somebody who just had a biopsy done 2 weeks before. And in the pit of my stomach, there was just something that said, I don't think the bad news is I think it's going to be worse than I'm thinking. And I'm thinking, how good could the good news be? Well, he started with the good news, and he said, the good news is this: we think we've caught it early. And I tell you, if you've ever heard those words, it doesn't seem like good news right when you hear it. And I knew what that meant. The book and the papers that he had in his hand was a book aptly called The Prostate Cancer Book, A Guide to Surviving Prostate Cancer. And he explained a few things to us. He explained our readings and where we were. And he said, we have some options. He goes, I don't think you're going to remember much of what we say after this point. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go home. I want you to read this book, make a list of all your questions, and then come back and ask. Well, once I found out I had prostate cancer, I found out, and once I began to tell it, there were a lot of people that I had found out that had prostate cancer as well, and I could begin to feed in. But I don't think guys, I was talking just right back here a while ago, and I don't think guys are great at telling maybe the things that we have like women are. I could tell you like 20 women who I've known who have gone through breast cancer, but I couldn't have told you one person at that time who had gone through prostate cancer. So I thought, I'm going to write a book called Prostate Cancer for Dummies when all this is over. But somebody else has already written that, so I'm going to have to come up with a version 2 for that. Well, when he told us to read the book, he said, really, that's all we're going to do today. And he walked out, and we were sitting there, and we thought, like, is the appointment over? Is that like all we do for today? And after we realized no one was coming back in, I remember even opening the door and like peeking out, is anybody else coming? Nobody's coming. And we went to the car, and instead of Linda getting in her car, she got in the passenger seat of my car, and I could tell that she was about to cry, and in just a minute, the tears started rolling down her face. And we didn't really say a lot. I was just looking at the front of the book, not really knowing how to process what I just heard, except kind of thinking that a Mack truck is coming at you, and is it about to hit you? And I'm thinking, I ain't got time for this. And I remember thinking, I'm down to run a marathon in December, which I'm obviously not going to do now. And I think, ain't nobody got time for prostate cancer. Well, you know what in the world is going on? Well, he gave us options, and the options, for me, actually complicated the matter a little bit. I think if he had just said, this is the course of treatment you need to take, and here it is, and this is what we do, I would have had nothing to think about. Linda's course of treatment from the very beginning was attack it, get it out, and be done with it. But I was listening to, you got this option, this option, this option, and I was trying to get all my ducks in a row. And finally, that morning after we left there, we went and had breakfast. I came to work, and I guess I wasn't able to concentrate on work. I did the one thing that they told me not to do. I got on the internet and I sought my second opinion through WebMD. And I started looking at all the things that people say, and I realized everyone's experience for dealing, I guess, with anything like this is a little bit different. And thus began a journey of us talking to radiologists and oncologists. And I remember that first day pulling up at the Vanderbilt Ingram Cancer Center. And I had been there several times, but I had always been there to see someone. I had never been there to be seen. And although I can't say I ever had this fear of dying, I have walked with God for 57 years now, and but as someone told me, I don't think I was planning on taking the next flight out to heaven, but it wasn't that I was scared of dying, so that wasn't the nervousness, but it was like it hit me at that point when I saw those words, and I thought, I'm not here to see someone, I'm here to be seen. And I was sitting talking with the radiologist, and the radiologist was such a super nice guy. And from the time I walked into his office, I just felt like I was on the verge of tears. And it was probably the first time. I don't think I had cried at that point. I had been a little bit aggravated at that point because it seemed like an interruption in my plans. And isn't that just like God, to interrupt your plans? And I think sometimes when I make plans, he laughs at those plans and says, we're going to take a different route here. But I talked to him, and I think he could see that I was about to get emotional. And he asked me a question, and I couldn't say anything because I knew if I talk, I'm going to cry. And he gave me time. He made us the last appointment of the day, and he sat there as long as we needed. And he came back, and he said, for where you're at in your stage, you're probably about 10 years ahead of where we see most guys. He said, most guys with what you have right now are probably in their mid to late 60s, not in their mid 50s. And he said, because of that, most people your age have it taken out, which was music to Linda's ears. She is like, yes, that's what I wanted to do from the very beginning, is just take this thing out. Well, we actually got a real second opinion, and after looking around, we knew that we wanted a doctor if we were going to have it taken out, we wanted a doctor who had done a lot of those. We didn't want somebody practicing on me, or I didn't want them practicing. I wanted to know, you've done a lot, and through a series of events that I think only God could orchestrate, we met a wonderful surgeon from Vanderbilt. And I looked at him, and after talking for a few minutes, I said, well, I've asked 2 doctors, and none of them will tell me an answer to a question. They keep telling me it's up to me. I said, I want to know, if you were me, I mean, you're the expert. If you were me and you're my age, what would you do? What of these options would you take? And he looked and he said, if I were someone who loved you, not that I don't love you, but I don't even know you, but if I were someone who loved you, I would say, let's take it out. Let's get rid of the bad part that's there. And then let's talk about healthy lifestyles after that. but let's get rid of the thing that's wrong on the front end. And from that, we felt so comfortable with him. They made the surgery for 2 months out. During that intervening time, before we had went to him, I felt like that I needed to at least tell my kids, and we had gone and we had told our kids, and we made an appointment, and I also met with the church staff, and I told them. I was missing to go to several doctor's appointments, and I didn't want them to think that I was skipping out on my job or staying home or at the pool or something. I wanted them to know what was going on, and I said, right now I just want to keep it between us till we figure out exactly what we're going to do. I remember the day I went down to my parents' home, which was kind of a hard thing to do as well. And I had asked them, I told them I want to go eat, and let's go eat at a place that they like to go. And so we went and had lunch there, and we came back, and on the way back, Mom was saying that she had made ice cream. But all the time we were there at lunch, Linda was kind of poking me, saying, when are you going to tell them? When are you going to tell them? When are you going to tell them? And I was nervous about telling them anyway, and I was like, shh, shh. And she said, Tom, they're in their 80s. They can't hear anything we're saying anyway. And which is actually true, and they do struggle with that. But we got back to the house, and we were sitting down, and I told them, I said, well, I've got something I need to tell you. And Mom jumped up and said, oh, I made ice cream. I want to get ice cream. And I went, Mom, I got something I need to tell you. She goes right on into the kitchen like nothing, like I don't think she heard a word of that. And she comes back, and I kind of said it louder. I said, Mom, I need to talk to you guys. She sticks her head back in. She goes, I've got strawberry and banana. Which would you like? So I went into the kitchen with her. I put my arm around her. I said, could we let the ice cream go for a minute? I got something I need to tell you. And so she comes out there, and I tell them, and my brother was there, who had kind of walked this journey with me. And my parents got a little bit emotional at first, and then we started talking, and we explained a few things, and they asked so many questions. And my dad asked if you guys knew. And this is where it gets a little bit personal, I guess, for me. And looking back, I decided to do something that in hindsight was not the best thing to do. And as a preacher, you always like to say you did the right thing, but in my mind, I had decided to do the wrong thing. And Dad said, well, you've told us, have you told your church family? And I said, I haven't, and I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to go back and tell them that I need to take 2 months off, and I don't know, I'll go write a book, which I probably wouldn't have done. I'd just probably watch binge on Judge Judy or something, who knows, but I'll just go do something else. And Dad said, I don't think that's the thing to do. And I began to tell Dad why I thought it was the thing to do. And I said, here's the reason I made that decision. I said, I have met so many people that I have just grown to love. And there were faces that popped into my mind, and I see some of them here sitting on the front row and Thrill's back and right over here, and who had come from Long Hollow. And I knew that they had been through an experience with Pastor David that did not end the way that not only they, but probably our whole county had prayed. And although I knew that my diagnosis was so much more encouraging and better than the one that he had received, still there was something inside of me that said, I don't want those people to relive those memories of what was a painful time in their life. And I just decided I don't want to do that. And I could tell that Dad kind of disagreed there for a little bit, that maybe I should make that. So I tried to convince him more, and I told him about something that actually occurred. And it's funny looking back on it, and I have laughed several times about it, but we do Starting Point here. And Starting Point is the kind of lunch that we do for people who want to learn more about Northfield, if you want to meet the different ministries and things. Well, the first starting point after I found out I had cancer I got down there, we went through the starting point, and after it's over, people, if they want to get involved in student ministry, they may meet with Trent, Haley if they want to get involved in children's ministry, Bill Jacoby if they want to get involved in parking, or Adam for security, and all those different people. Well, a couple came up to me, and they had their papers in their hand. And he goes, well, we are in, we love it here, we are ready to go, we just got one question. And I was like, hit me with your question. He goes, well, we moved to this area several years ago, and we started going to First Baptist Hendersonville, and Pastor Glenn passed away. And he said that was a hard time to get through. Then said, then we went to Long Hollow, and Pastor David passed away. And I'm thinking, give me them papers, I'm tearing them up. You are not coming like you are. Your time at Northfield is over, my friend. Let me tell you. I don't know where I want to send you, but not here. And I didn't know what to say to them. I didn't say any of that. I'm just sitting there thinking, God, what am I supposed to do right now? I just held out my hand and I said, take my pulse, quick. And she went like that. And I said, do I have a pulse? She said, yeah. I said, I guess I'm doing good right now then. And they didn't say anything else, and they're still here. I still see them ever so often. And we got through that. But I told Dad that, and Dad said, I still think it's the wrong decision. And but Dad hugged me and said, let's talk later. I didn't know later would be like at 6:30 the next morning. Dad is older now, and he and Mom, they sleep a little bit longer than they used to, but he told me, he said, not been able to get this off my mind. And I don't know, I thought he's just thinking about the cancer, but he said, I'm calling to tell you, I think you need to tell your church family. He said, I don't pretend to know all the things that you go through as a pastor and all the people that come to you, because I had told him, I said, I'm the one that people come to. I said, it just seems backwards to me that it's my job to comfort other people. And he said, I don't think you're protecting the people in your congregation. I think you're robbing the people in your congregation of a chance to serve you, and a chance to pray for you, and a chance to be there for you in the middle of a storm. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, Paul was right when he said that you should listen to your parents. So however young or old you are, listen to your mom, listen to your dad. I began to think about that, and I thought, that's what I need to do. My wife wanted me to cancel the trip to Idaho that we were going to make, because I was only a week out from surgery. She was scared I would get sick and they would postpone it. But I went and I met some amazing people. One of them is right here on the front row, and Jim, who came back, decided to have a heart attack on us when he got back. And I'm so glad to see you up here on the front row, brother. But I met him, and then another guy that you've known, that I've introduced you to before, Tim. And it was at that hike on top of one of those mountains that Tim and I had a moment where I found out that he had come from Long Hollow as well, and that he had been a personal friend of Pastor David. And we talked about that, and he looked and he said, you need to tell your church family. And he said, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to walk through it with you. And I cannot tell you how much I have felt that I have felt every prayer. I have felt everything that you wrote on Facebook, everything, every text, every call, even though I haven't returned them all. And at some point, I told myself I'm going to just spend the time, and I'm going to go down Facebook hitting love, 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 love. I'll be here for a while doing that, because I loved every one of those, and I would read them over and over and over again. And the response, I guess, from you guys has just been overwhelming and such a blessing. The other thing that I thought was kind of funny, how God puts things in perspective for you. The Sunday before, the last Sunday that I was here, when I said I'm going to have surgery on the upcoming Thursday, a lady, as I was going out this door, she stopped me and she said, before you go, I really want to pray with you today. And I thought, oh, that's nice. And I just assumed, never assume anything. I assumed that she was going to pray for me. Now, let me ask you, any of you, if you're as old as me, do you remember that movie about that dog named Cujo? Anybody remember that? Well, anyway, that's going to come into play in just a minute, because I have changed the names to protect what is about to happen. I get to to the green room with this lady. We're sitting on the back brown, those two back brown chairs there, and she took my hands, and I was fully expecting her to say, I just want a word of prayer for you. So I've got her hands, I'm looking in her eyes, and she says, I have a dog and I love him so much. We have been together for 15 years and I think I'm gonna have to put him down next week, and I wanted to know if you would pray for him. And I thought, okay, I totally missed that. That is not where I picture this conversation going. So I looked and I thought, okay, we can do this. So we bowed our heads and I said, Father, would you help this lady who I won't name? And would you help her dog Cujo to get better? And if it's time to go, would you help him? And by the way, I'm going to have a little surgery on Thursday as well. And I'm just going to put a good word for me in now. And I don't know how Cujo's going, but I can tell you guys that I got some of the best news possible. When the pathology report finally came back, it was great that I made the decision to take it out because the cancer was a full stage above where they thought it was. And they had told me from the very beginning that prostate cancer in men, if you're going to have a cancer, it's one of the best to get because it is the most treatable. However, the other extreme of that is more men die of prostate cancer in our country every year than any other form of cancer, they told me, because they don't have it checked. I think that and lung cancer are right up there at the very top with guys and the type of cancer that kill them. But most men don't see the warning signs, but if you catch it early, it's 95% treatable in my case. And so they came out, they said the pathology report, we took margins because it was more advanced, but we don't see anything in there. I have my first blood test tomorrow, then I'll have one quarterly for a year, and then every year, I think, for 5 years, and then after 5 years, I think it's where they say, I'm going to be with Amber's Club there, that we're good and we're clean. And so just pray for that, and those tests, that those numbers have gone way, way down there. Just maybe to tell you one last thing that I did, and maybe why I'm telling you, because I know I ran a little bit over at first, and I apologize. I'll get the praise team up here in just a minute. But early on, being a guy, they told me for 8 weeks not to lift anything heavier than a gallon of milk. Because while they don't do a huge incision, you've got an incision here, and you've got two here, and 2 holes up here. And they said all those go all the way through the muscle, and you're susceptible to getting a hernia. So you don't want to have hernia surgery. So Linda, being the guard dog in our house that she was making sure if I even looked like I was going to lift anything, she was like, don't lift that, I'll get that. And one day, about 2.5 weeks in, she decided that she was going to run to Publix because they had a prescription that was ready, and Publix is just right down the road. She said, you're going to be okay for 15 minutes here by yourself. And I said, I'm going to be great. Me, the recliner, and Judge Judy, what more could you want? I'm going to be fine. So she leaves. Well, she had said, at least 100 times, she goes, you're going to burst open. You're going to burst open. You're doing too much. You're lifting too much. The stitch is just going to come open on you. Well, when she was gone, I don't know what. I attribute it to maybe Satan, but I got this idea in my mind. I went to the refrigerator and I got a bottle of ketchup while she was gone. And I went and I got in the living room floor. Now, I have to be careful. I couldn't lay on this side because it hurt too much, and I couldn't lay flat. So it's kind of laid like this for a minute. A decision I later regretted because getting up hurt really bad. And I waited to hear her car pull back in. And when her car pulled back in, I lifted up my shirt and I squirted ketchup on that incision there. I don't recommend doing that, but Dan is available for marriage counseling if you do that and need it. I was laying there on the floor, and she comes in, and she doesn't even look in the living room. She walks in, and she walks that way to the kitchen, and she goes, Tom. And I went, Lynn. I'm in the living room. So she comes in the living room. She's got a little bag of groceries in her hand. She drops it. She was as white as a ghost. I mean, she was there. And then she just yelled. She said, what did you pick up? And I went. And then I got behind me. I said, the ketchup. I picked up the ketchup. I started laughing so hard that it hurt so bad, I ended up having to take an oxycodone because I made myself hurt so bad. And she said, I hope you burst asunder, I hope. And then she wouldn't even help me up, but then she felt bad because 2 days later that stitch did come open and I had to go back and get it done. But I know we've got communion, and I just want to maybe kind of talk with you communion about being grateful, because I think communion is a great way that we remember our gratefulness to God. So if you're serving communion this morning, you want to get in place, I'm going to say a prayer for you, and then if you'll just pass maybe as I'm talking through this. I think one of the best things about this maybe is gratitude that I'll talk about while we're taking communion. Father, we're about to take a little bit of bread and a cup that represents to us the event in history that I am most grateful for, that when I could do nothing for myself, that you died for us. So Father, as we take this bread, as we take this cup, would you help us to be grateful and help us to remember what you did for us? And I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. I think one of the things that this taught me was to be grateful. I figured out that I have not only the best physical family in the world, but I have the best staff in the world. I can't tell you how grateful I am to Trent, to Dan, to Anna, to Lisa, to Haley, to Katie, to Melissa, and I probably have left some of them out, but they have been, what'd you say? Corey, yes, Corey right back there in the thing. Caleb, Trent's helping me over there because I should have wrote all of them down. That you guys know who they are. They have been entirely awesome. They've never for 1 minute made me feel less than because I've had to miss a little bit. And even in the days when I came in for half a day and then felt I needed to leave, they have been right there every step of the journey. I don't think I ever had. I've heard people say, well, life isn't fair and this isn't fair. I don't know that I ever had that feeling that it wasn't fair. I did have the feeling that it was an inconvenience and why in the world are we going through this? But I never really thought in my mind that it wasn't fair, or I didn't, if the worst came about, I didn't want to die. As I said, I walked 57 years with God. I didn't even really find myself being angry about the diagnosis. It was kind of hard. It was almost like disbelief. It could happen to other people, but that kind of stuff didn't happen to you. And maybe the question that I began to ask was, why not me? Why not me? Why not be someone who can do what my dad said and say, hey, we need people who go through bad things in life and show that you don't have to give up on God just because bad things happen. And that God is not always responsible, nor does he like all the things that happen to us in this life that we would like to forget. And I became grateful. And I think the more I thought about the bad stuff, the more the good stuff I was grateful for. I was grateful for those moments when we're just sitting and top hog talking. And I was grateful for those moments when we would sit around a table and the staff would just pray for you. I was grateful for those moments when the door would knock and a plaque would come in the door that had the words "To I raise a hallelujah" on it, or "It is well with my soul." I became thankful for my small group in a way that I never had before. That when I couldn't sleep and I would get up at 2 a.m. because my mind was spinning, there would be cookies and cheesecake and Krispy Kreme donuts that I would snack on, and I became extremely grateful for those things. The other things I think that I became grateful for was my entire family, but especially my wife. And I realized that you don't really go through anything alone. And maybe that's close to what Jesus was telling his disciples on that night when they took the bread and the cup. That it's going to feel like you're alone for a while, but I want you to know you're not really alone. And we begin to use words like we're having surgery, or we're going through this treatment, or we're going to get better. We're going to have a good day. And I realized that my wife took seriously her vows to love me in sickness and in health. And when I couldn't bend over to put my shoes on, she never complained and was there every time. And in those first 2 weeks when I couldn't even put my pants on by myself, she was there to help. And never once made me feel less than or anything. And when I would begin to get those negative feelings, and you don't want those because negativity is a disease all its own. You want to be positive. She would look and she would say, not that you're going to make it, but we're going to make it together. I love the times with my grandson. I loved picking him up, swinging him, throwing him up in the air, doing all these type of active things with him. And I knew I wouldn't be able to do with that. And we were nervous that he wouldn't understand why for a few weeks. And so it was about 3 weeks before I saw him. And I remember when he came out of the car for the first time, I knew he was coming over, and I was a little bit nervous, but I was watching at the door for the car to pull up. And before they were out of the car, I had walked down the steps and was meeting him in the grass. And when he got out of the car, he looked and he just yelled, "Pop, Pop." And in the next few minutes, he gave me a big hug and he said, "I forgot you, Pop. I forgot you, Pop." And it bothered me for a minute until Kristen explained to me that that was his way of saying, "I've missed you. I've missed you. I forgot that we were supposed to be here, that we forgot that we were supposed to play." And I remembered how special even those little moments are. I think I grew closer to my 2 children during this time. I realized how much I had prayed for them as a child, yet all of a sudden I realized how much as an adult they had prayed for me. And it doesn't mean that I still won't call my daughter by my son's name or vice versa. But it does mean I realized how much the times just going to Arby's that I had taken for granted that I cherished. I think I became more grateful for my parents. Before this, we talked maybe once a week, but through this process, we began to talk every single day. And sometimes it would be just for a minute, and sometimes it would be for 10 minutes. But I love the fact that they were listening. I was thankful for my brother, Dan, who's just a year younger than me, again, whose father-in-law had passed away from prostate cancer. And he would go with me to talk to my parents, and he would be there when I would have an appointment, and he would call and talk to me and walk with me through that. And I think the hard times reminded me to be grateful for the good times. And I think I found a new level of intimacy with each of you. I don't know whether you feel it, but there's something about when I see your faces again and I saw just the heart on something, or the like, or the smiley face, or just the word that you sent that was praying. And as I would read those over and over and over again, it reminded me that we are so much of a family together. And that maybe in this life, that if we do anything, being good and being kind to each other is the thing that we should do the best. I think I've learned better not to sweat the small stuff, and maybe forgive a little bit easier than I had forgiven before. That holding on to hostility and things are never good for anyone, and life is too short. And maybe when I have the chance, it would be better to believe the best about the other person than to believe the worst. And I think that when it's all stripped away, one of the things that God has taught me the most through this process is that what he said so long ago was still true today, that perhaps the greatest thing on earth that we could do as Christians is to love God and love people with the same love that he had for us. And one crazy thing that I read over and over, that people would say, you need to live each day as if it were your last. And maybe at the beginning of this journey, I'm really trying to do that, to live each day as if it were my last. I want to encourage you, be careful when you do that, because it's concerning to your friends and your family when you call them and say goodbye. And they say, "What?" And you say, "Well, I'm just living each day as if it were my last. So in case it is, I wanted to say bye today." But maybe by that, it's not so much that little thing that you do, it's just the being kind to one another. And maybe as somebody that I've not always agreed with, but have come to respect in so many ways, a lady named Ellen said last week, I don't have to agree with everyone around me to love everyone around me. And maybe I can be a light and a beacon in this world. The verse that I had them print on my little car was Exodus 14:14, that says, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still." When that verse was written, the children of Israel had come out of Egypt. They were standing at the edge of the Red Sea, and they didn't know how they were going to escape what was going on. The Egyptians were approaching behind. They knew they couldn't go forward. And all of a sudden in that, Moses looks at them and he says, stand firm and see the deliverance the Lord will bring to you this day. For the Egyptians that have enslaved you will no longer bother you. They will be vanished this day. And then he says this verse, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And I realized from that verse that maybe God doesn't save you from every bad thing that happens in life, but he always walks with you through those things that happen in life. And some of the things that make you grow the most are the things that are the hardest, the things that I would have chosen not to have gone through. But I realized that when I went through those things, that I came out with a greater degree of love and respect and intimacy with my Heavenly Father than I had before. I hope that you've got time for just, I think each song is maybe about 4 minutes long, but I asked them to sing, particularly the song Oceans. And I just wanted you to hear maybe a couple of the words from that song before we sing it. You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And maybe sometimes you're here and there are all those times in your life where you realize that you're in deep waters and that your talent and your skill and all the things that you have prided yourself on being able to do and work your way out of it aren't going to work anymore. And you're in a deep place where you need God. And I love the thought, it's there I find you in the mystery. In oceans deep, my faith will stand. And I will call upon your name. And I will keep my eyes above the waves, for when oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. And I'm going to ask you to do a crazy little thing. And some of you I know are really comfortable with lifting your hands, and others, you weren't raised in that tradition, so maybe all you can do is a little bit of this, on the side. But we're going to get to a part in here then I want you to make it your prayer, because it has become my prayer. It's the part that says, Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. That I want God to lead me to a place. I want His Spirit to be such a part of me that not cancer, not a spouse leaving, not death, not life. It's as Paul said, not anything above us or below us, to know that He can never separate us from the love of God that is found in Christ Jesus, where there are no borders out there. And that I would be willing to go wherever you would call me. My prayer, God, that you would take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, because my feet only wander generally in what's comfortable. So God, would you take me into those areas that are uncomfortable, because I know it's in those areas that my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. And when we get to that part and sing it, if that's you and you feel comfortable, I'm just going to raise my hand in saying to my Father, Father, would you make that my life? Would you lead me where my trust is without borders? And would you make my faith stronger? And I will call upon your name. And I will keep my eyes above the waves, and my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you, Father, are mine.
In